So it seems sort of dull to have claws in your gloves, and then one day Dave comes in, and what he would do is he'd do sketches on the back of the art pages, and what he had was this fist with 3 claws coming out of the hand. And I took one look at it and I said, oh, God, that's awful. That is so cool. Let's do it. And then you have the scene in X-Men 99 where, yeah, it was 99, where Logan just cuts himself out of the, whatever the heck, Traskett imprisoned him in. And, you know, Jean makes the obvious, you never told us the claws were a part of you. And I came up with a defining line of Logan's reality. You never asked. No, I mean, there are certain moments where the right line comes into the right place. It's like, we're sitting there watching, my wife and I are sitting there watching the grand premiere, the Hollywood premiere, even though it was on Governor's Island. And I've just met, like, you know, it's like when Famke Janssen comes up and says, you're gonna write me a great Phoenix movie, right? Oh yeah, you betcha. And the next thing that happens is the guy who, anyway, I got fired and I couldn't write the movie. It was really annoying, because I wanted to. But, no, it's, God, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, a foolish person. But when Rogue asks Hugh Jackman, does it hurt? And he looks at her, and he looks out the window, and he looks down at his hand, and he looks out the window and just, every time. And all of a sudden, I'm on my feet and I go, yes! And my wife is like, would you sit down? Because A, my line, B, my character, C, yes. And the way, I'm sorry, Hugh Jackman is, you know, when I was a young wannabe actor, Ian McKellen would come to New York every few years, every or so, and he'd do this short-lived play called Acting Shakespeare. And it was basically a master class. And he'd do a speech, and then he'd sit down and take it apart for you. And it's Ian McKellen, who cares? Except at the top of the theater, behind the last row, and we're talking the $5 a seat row, you have all of us young wannabe actors just standing there taking notes and coming down after the show and just talking to him for a little bit. So we're at the premiere, and I'm, honey, can you excuse me for a minute? I gotta be gay for about 15 minutes. And I went over to Sir Hugh, dear boy, thank you so much. Huh? I love the character. You know, and part of me is thinking, he knows who I am? And part of me is thinking, oh my God, he likes it. And then he says, Hugh, come over here. I'm going, huh? And this beautiful, tall, holy kid. I'm going, and he introduces us, and I'm going, hi. And I was like, wow, he's really gorgeous and he's really tall. And, you know, and someone once said, what do you think of Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry? I mean, it's all wrong. And I'm going, really? Yes. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Hugh Jackman is 6'7", and Halle Berry is 5'1". And in comics, it's the reverse. I mean, back in the day, I wanted Angela Bassett to play Aurora. I wanted Bob Hoskins, because this is the 80s, to play Logan. It would have been, for me, brilliant. But, you know, life doesn't always go the way you want. So, and I pointed out, yes, the size relationships, but the size relationships are exactly right. Only in the comic, Wolverine's 5'1", and Aurora's 6 foot whatever. But it's Halle Berry and Hugh Jackman. Who gives a? Thank you. And for me, it worked for the next 20 years. Each time you saw them in character on the screen, who cares? They're right. It was, all they needed were better screenplays. But I wasn't aware. I talk way too much, but then I was conditioned to be paid by the word. As some of you who've read my early scripts probably noticed.
Well, one thing that people love about the X-Men, your writing of the X-Men, was that you really looked at the character motivations and their desires and the individual personalities, and you pulled that out, so we really cared about those characters. So
I'm sorry, haven't you read books?
I haven't read any
fiction.
No.
I mean, isn't that the essence of writing? I'm not trying to be facetious,
yes.
But the whole point is to create people that you fall in love with.
Yes.
I mean, if you're going to have characters, I mean, it would be the same if I was writing Spider-Man, if I was writing, I mean, the funny thing for me is I've never really liked Superman or Batman, but I am totally gobsmacked for Clark and Bruce, because they're the important ones to me. They're the ones who are dealing with life when they're not running around in the Batmobile or flying through space. Otherwise, what's the point?
But that doesn't always happen, though, with the characters. But
no, but see, I have an advantage over most of the modern writers. I was hired and taught by Stan. Stan knew this, if you pardon the expression, shite. This is no, I mean, it's like, Stan's rule was, all I want from you is 3 things. Turn your book in on time, don't be a pain in my ass, and write good work. I would love all 3 of them, but I'll take any 2 out of 3. But I'm giving you this book to write. I don't want to hear any gripes. I want you to write the book. If it sells, bravo. If you can't meet the deadlines, I'll get somebody else. It's a very primal relationship. There's none of this, I want you to be wonderful. I'm the editor, you've got to do what I want. We're here on business, we're here to make money, but the way to make money is to tell really kick-ass stories and make the reader come back for more. Because if the reader doesn't understand what's going on, if the reader doesn't care about what's going on, or if the reader only cares about what's going on out of habit, they're gone. I don't want you. I want what I had in the 80s, which is people on the 3rd Thursday of every month queuing up outside their comic book stores to see the next issue. That is the most horrifyingly wonderful thing, because that means the story is hitting them on a gut level. That's what I want. I want you to fall in love with the characters, with the stories, the same way that I fall in love with the characters and the stories, because that's my job. I personally think Sean Connery is the best James Bond. My wife thinks that Daniel Craig is the best James Bond. The key thing is, when you're watching James Bond, when you're watching Sean Connery up until the one James Bond that he should have done but he didn't do, which is, thank you, bless you. Or you're watching Daniel Craig do all of them. That's it. I want, and then when you get to the end of Daniel Craig's, and it's like, you see the last 5 minutes where you're waiting for him to get blown up. It's heartbreaking, or it should be heartbreaking. That's what it's all about. It's not like sitting there kind of going, we got to go get the car, or sitting there and thinking, Thanos comes up, what will you do, Thanos? I will sit down. Then what the are we doing here? It's like, that's not what you want, is Hawkeye running through being chased by an army of whatever those icky CGI things were. It's Captain America getting up after he's been beat to living daylights. Iron Man's been beat to living daylights. Thor's been beat to living daylights. There's not a way in hell they can win, but he's not gonna quit. I mean, you know, Thanos has broken the unbreakable shield, but Cap just shrunk, gets up. Captain America. And Sam. What? Wait, aren't you dead? And then the windows open and it's like, what? But the point is, it's those moments that make you sit up and go, okay, I'm now interested. It's Tony going, I am Iron Man. Fire. Okay, it's only been 7.5 hours. We've gotten there. But the moment that really, for me, makes it valuable is he has a daughter. And when she comes out of the tent wearing her mom's Iron Man helmet, it's like the hell with the kid from Iron Man 3. That's the next Iron Man. A 6-year-old kid wearing the suit. To me, that I could take off with that in 30 seconds. Because that gives you everything you need. It gives you a character you bond with because she's Tony's daughter. It gives you a studio that's like happy because I can sign her to a 15-year contract and that'll keep her there till she's in her 20s. Yes! But you watch her grow up along the way. And best of all, you go up and bribe Robert Downey Jr. to be the voice of the AI. I'd go see that in 30 seconds. You know, that's what movies are all about. That's what stories are all about. To get you to come and open the story. It's like the purpose of the opening of every James Bond film is by the time they get to the opening credits, you're in love. Because he's doing some sort of crazy ass thing, jumping off mountains, driving the car, whatever. But you think, wow, what the heck's gonna happen next? The whole point of comics should be, if you're not grabbed by page 3, and I mean grabbed, forget about it. At $5 a pop, if you don't have your audience right off the bat, if you don't have your audience to the extent that by the time they get to the end of the issue, they're going out and telling their friends, you gotta see this stuff, then we used to cancel books that didn't sell 100,000 copies. Automatically, you're dead. Now, I mean, the last series I did, what were the sales when you canceled it? Like, I don't know, 1,000? You waited 1.5 years for that? I mean, I love the series. I was writing the series. But if it's under, no, you should have killed that years ago. It's a business. It's a seduction business because we want you to buy it. But we want you to buy it because we're giving you stories, ideally, that you want to see what happens next. End of rant.
So, you talked about meeting Hugh Jackman. And, yeah. So what was it like being in the X-Men movies, in The Last Stand, Days of Future Past? To see yourself.
They flew me up they flew me up to Canada, to Montreal. They got me, they measured me, they got me the best tuxedo ever. And so I'm standing there in the line and you know, Xavier comes down the line and he looks at me and I look down at him, have our little moment, and then he goes off because he's been called by the emergency. And then we got to the release of the film, and the camera stays focused on Xavier. And all you see of me is the waist down, and not even much of that. It's the thigh of my dinner jacket. I thought, well, made $2,000. On the other hand, I got to do a scene with Peter Dinklage, And no, he didn't answer any questions about Game of Thrones. He said he would not ask any questions about Game of Thrones. Even when I said, George Martin and I are old friends, then you should have read the book. I said, I did read the book, but you guys have gone beyond the book. So, but no, it's a lot of fun. Even, sitting there watching my lawnmower.
Yeah, your lawnmower.
Raised up into the air, I think, wow. But, it's a whole different reality. And the thing is, the Marvel reality is significantly different from the Fox reality. The irony, of course, being, if not for X-Men, there likely wouldn't have been a Spider-Man. If there were no X-Men and no Spider-Man, there likely would have been no Iron Man. And if there were no Iron Man, we'd have a totally different world today. Not that I'm saying anything, but it's all, as usual, it's all the X-Men's fault. Yes! So just think, if Len hadn't given up the book 50 years ago, I'd be on strike as an actor instead of a writer. And you'd be listening to somebody completely different, assuming you were here at all.
That's true, very true. We only have a few minutes left, but we did say...
I talked too much again.
No, it's all good. It seems like you're a writer.
Actually, my wife would say a blabbermouth.
Does anybody have any questions? Let's go right here.
Chris.
Yes?
I want to say congratulations. You've come a long way. I'm going to remind you how far you've come. You were at my very first comic book convention in 1978 at the Lord Baltimore Hotel, which no longer exists, and in a room about maybe twice the size of this. Did you ever think it would